whole situation, the whole inherency we have now in Taiwan?
The negative would be that the current system, which includes psychotherapy, has had influence on the sexual crimes.
Okay, so you mentioned that the recidivism rate is about 3%, and you said that it is low.
It is now lower.
And do you agree that we should be aware of the numbers instead of the statistic? The statistic might be low, like 3%. It might be low compared to other crimes. But actually, in the 3%, there are still cases happening every day.
But the negative here believes that lowering the recidivism rate is part of solving this problem. And so the negative believes that the current system is actually solving the problem right now.
Then do you agree that the current system is not actually helping to solve the problem because we still see cases happening every day?
Of course, there will be cases every day. However, the thing we can do is to lower the recidivism rates and other numbers so that we can improve the system. Of course, there will be sexual assaults happening around us, but we can just improve this kind of situation.
And do you agree that U.S. is a different country in Taiwan?
Yes.
Okay, and do you agree that a sex offender should be aware of the consequences that they will have to be responsible for?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so next one. So do you agree that citizen safety is the main reason why the government wants to pass this law?
Mostly, but the most important part is that the government wants to ensure that everyone has.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. We are from the side strongly insists that the Taiwan government should make public sex offenders' personal information. So now I'm going to do some refutations. First is a negative that has mentioned that the recidivism rate is low, but we should focus on the number, not the rate, because according to Ministry of Justice, there are almost 30 cases happening every day. So we should focus on the number because there are still a lot of victims. And according to the Taiwanese Social of Psychiatrists, the recidivism of sexual offenses is one of the highest compared to other violent crime. So we think that making public sex offenders' personal information is necessary. And second, they have mentioned about the USA evidence from USA, which is the budget. But in USA, different states have different policies. And also, we have the app, which is completely different from USA. And we have the budget that already for, in the current system, we can move it into the new policy, so we won't waste other monies. We think that our plan is effective. And third is that they mentioned about the Constitution that the criminals have the right to choose where to live. But as my partner mentioned, our policy is a rehabilitative measure, not a punishment. So they still can choose where to live. And according to Constitution, Article 23, all the freedoms and rights enumerated in the preceding articles should not be restricted by law, except by such as may be necessary to prevent infringement upon the freedoms of other persons, to avert an imminent crisis, to maintain social order, or to advance public welfare. And in this case, sex offenders have already done something detrimental. Therefore, some of their rights cannot be guaranteed. And fourth is they mention about the psychotherapy, which and the criminals' education. But the current system, just like we mentioned, is bad. So we think that's not enough. We have to make the citizens have awareness. Okay, so now I'm gonna continue my points and my plan. First is notify and take precautions. Protecting the public from sex offenders is the government's primary interest. As long as there are sex offenders out there, anyone might become the victim. So people want to protect themselves and have the right to know about the safety of their community. Notifying the community about the sex offenders in their area helps citizens protect themselves by either avoiding that area or be careful when passing that area. And second is the victim's serious trauma. According to research by psychiatrist Rothbaum, more than 95% of victims suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder after being raped, which causes serious mental and physical problems to the victims, Furthermore, over 50% of victims wants to commit suicide, and the government's role is to protect our citizens from becoming victims and suffering from these pain. And third is a UK example. And it's a government survey of conducting the experimental program of making sex offenders' personal information, and it shows that it did not add too much workload to the police department. So we think our plan is efficient. And as for our plan, the app we mentioned before, we will be abolishing EM and replace with the GPS monitor, and the sex offenders will be located on the app. However, the app will only show the current location of a sex offender, and we already have a rehabilitator center for the criminals aged under 18. They can help those teenagers and also help those other criminals who have no work. According to the reason above, we affirm this side strongly insist that the Taiwan government should make public sex offenders' personal information. Thank you.
First, negative process, and second, affirmative.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I would like to ask, the affirmative said that the system is different from the US.
Taiwan is different from, as you agree,
Okay.
Taiwan is different from
Right,
US.
thank you. But does the affirmative agree that the budget of the USA is just an example that much money is needed on this system?
But as I mentioned, different state has different policies, so you cannot take their example to Taiwan. And this is different. The system is not
All
the
right.
same.
Thank you. So, how would you please explain how would you notify the
Notify the people. As we mentioned, we have website, we have app, and also they can inform they can go to the police department to find the information. But the information will be protected because the citizens have to use their ID number to register an account to get access to the information.
So thank you. So would the app only be the GPS monitor? Will it only be used on people who are parole or others?
And
Only on
only
parole.
parole and sex offender.
So, okay, so, and the affirmative mentioned about that there are sex offenders out there.
You mean the society or?
Yes, the society, but wait, the affirmative had mentioned that the current system is not doing a great job, but then how can you explain the lowering recidivism rate?
Because we will let the people raise the people's awareness. So by using this app or the website.
However, but not. I meant that in the current system we don't have publicizing their personal information. But
So we think the current system is not good enough. Thank you.
Second, negative conspiracy, warning.
Honorable judges and distinguished debaters, the affirmatives have brought up a plan about publicizing sex offenders' personal information. However, the negative would like to point out the disadvantages. First, the affirmative did not give strong evidence to show that implementing this system can improve the current situation profoundly. According to an evaluation of sex offender residency restrictions in Michigan and Missouri conducted in 2013, the relation between residency restrictions and the effect on recidivism is small. In Iowa, 223 sex offenders subjected to sex offender registration were tracked for an average of 4.3 years. Their sex offense recidivism rate, 3%, was not significantly different from a control group of 201 sex offenders, which is 3.5%, who were not required to register because they were adjudicated before the law went into effect. And second, after making sex offenders' personal information public, a lot of money and resources will be wasted on maintaining the system. If we take America, for example, the new state New Jersey has 4,329 registered sex offenders in 1997, and the government spent $2 million on the execution of the system. And since the affirmative did not show strong solvency to the plan, the negative would like to propose a moderate minor repair. And our minor repair is focused on long-term treatments. And we will help the sex offenders to overcome their problems instead of making their personal information public. When sentenced to jail, the offender should receive evaluation and treatments. The treatments mentioned is included counseling, evaluation, and education. There will be psychologists and counselors to help them improve their situation. We will unify the evaluation tool, which is Static 99. The offender will receive treatment during his sentence, and before he is set on parole, he will need to receive evaluation again. The treatments will be fully executed in every city. And also, we agree with the affirmative that many victims have suffered from crimes that sex offenders have committed. However, isn't sex offender also a human being? What if, after opening the information, the citizens will abuse the information to harm the sex offender? And what if, after opening the information, everyone will know who the sex offender is, and they will be isolated from the society and makes them hard to find jobs? And it will increase the motivation for the sex offenders to commit a crime again. And in addition, if serving sentence in jail means that the sex offender has already got his punishment, isn't making their personal information public is punishing the sex offender the second time? And so in conclusion, our minor repair is focusing on treatments about sex offenders in jail, and we will lift the standards of the psychologists and the counselors. And because the affirmative has failed to give strong solvency to the plan that making sex offenders' personal information public can reduce